Welcome back to Prison Persia 2008. So now we had a taste with the generals. Let's start tackling their fertile grounds, one by one. Starting with the one that we have, of which we have already one of the abilities to use.
Shame we don't have a fast travel, but you don't always need
Actually,
it.
we do. When you unlock a fertile, there you go. Another cool thing is that if you spot an enemy that is forming like that, if you can reach it in time, you can actually end the fight before it starts, like that. There's even an achievement if you manage to strike them enough times like that. But anyway, there is fast travel, Jova. You can basically, fast travel between each of the fertile grounds that you purified, and logically also the temple.
Oh, right, I forgot about that.
This also helps when you need to unlock a new ability and you have to, backtrack on that. Now, the backtracking is not that bad. Most of the annoyance comes in trying to collect all of the seeds of light that form in to complete everything.
Ha! Genre savvy, aren't we?
Are you sure this new princess is just Nathan Drake in a disguise?
Well, I should probably mention to him, he pretty much is Nathan Drake.
Remember, there's already established that this was back when developers were trying to write off the success of Uncharted.
Yeah.
Which wasn't always a bad idea.
Again, like I said, this is a better... Oh shit.
This is what you get for saying it's quiet.
Well, again, it's the hunter, so it kind of makes sense for an ambush.
Now, I'll admit, I don't know how okay, on the one hand, the idea of the bosses themselves recurring, and not just one recurring boss, but several different recurring bosses, is actually kind of interesting. I guess the only issue I have is, when you get down to it, there's not that many enemies in this game. You notice how we got here with relatively no
aside from the boss, you only got to get one enemy, normal, quote-unquote, enemy type that you fight occasionally here and there. But aside from that, no, you only got to the recurring bosses.
It's kind of like Cuphead, but oh god, I hate this attack!
Seriously?
Yep, he covers your screen for a few seconds.
What is this? Fucking Mario Kart? Come on, Ubisoft.
That too. It actually reminds me more of that enemy from that Sonic Lost World level that also fills your screen with paint. That ending, that level from Sonic Lost World, that's like a max speed zone.
Oh, that's only if you get hit, though, I think.
Well,
true, but it's still annoying.
Okay, yeah. I mean, at least there, it's only if you get hit. Here, though, it happens regardless, and it's
Sonic-wise, instead reminds me of the bubble attack that some of the characters in Sonic, the mobile version of Sonic Forces have.
Of course, there makes sense in that one, but yeah. Huh, so I guess the boss is just gonna hang out there and taunt us from a distance. I can't tell if that's smart or cowardly of him. Especially when you get down to it, when you reach them, they don't think to retreat again. They just go, okay, let's continue the fight.
I did play it for a little bit, and it is basically dash.
That's the thing, though. The hunter is not, isn't keeping busy by creating these traps. So therefore, this is where it starts becoming a bit annoying with the platform, because even if you respawn, you have to pay attention to this, because if you fail at any point during this sequence, you have to restart from the ledge where you started. Imagine that in the late parts of the game, it becomes increasingly annoying because there is no challenge. The challenge all resides into doing a perfect run, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the issue.
And I mean, yes, I get good because, that's the idea behind it. I only wish there was, the choice between either getting good or, having the option, having another way, another option around or something.
See, this is one of the cruxes that comes when you make a game that otherwise has no challenge.
Wrong direction.
It's okay, she's here to save the day. But yeah, again, this is sort of the issue when you make a game with virtually no challenge whatsoever. It gives the developers the excuse to make it so that you have to do a perfect one, because, oh, well, technically there's no punishment, so it's okay if we force you to do stuff perfectly the exact way we want you to. Not so always.
Mind you, this applies only when the third. Jesus, I did it again. Yeah, in case you're wondering, some of the controls with the camera and everything are a bit screwy in a sense. I forgot if I talked properly about this mechanic, but I think so. Basically, a mechanic that has always been stable of the Ubisoft Prince of Persia games is the fact that when you're grabbing a python, even if you're not facing the direction of which you want to jump, if you press at the same time the directional button and the jump button, the prince will automatically, rotate around and jump immediately towards the direction where you want to go. Problem is, in a game like this, there's a bit of input lag, therefore it may result in the prince just jumping in the opposite direction where you want to go.
The Ubisoft Prince of Persia games, implying this one isn't from Ubisoft.
Well, no, because that's, remember, it was the original trilogy, Prince of Persia 1, The Fire and the Flame, The Flame of Something, and Prince of Persia 3D were not published by Ubisoft, or made by them.
Wonder how they got the IP.
They remember, like I said, they acquired it during the phase we were starting to get bigger. Since Rayman basically elevated their status, and they managed to release a couple of other games in the meantime that managed to make them successful, like Bumble, I think it's called, on the N64. The one with a super catchy theme song for some reason.
Yeah, I guess the thing that's interesting to know that there was a time where Ubisoft were about as big as, say, CD Projekt Red.
Well, Dweebs, that's kind of how it is. Like,
sorry, you died.
Who cares? Occasionally, the enemy will surround himself with a barrier. In that case, your sword attacks have absolutely no effect on it, and only Elika can damage it because, it's the corruption, and she needs to, disperse it before you're able to do some damage again. Then again, considering how most of the combat, it's related to Elika's attack, because that's the only way you're gonna get somewhere, you might as well just spamming her if you can.
Oh, haha! God, fairy, dog.
There we go.
Plus.
Again, pinning an enemy, there you go, onto a wall actually helps you tremendously, in defeating them.
He can't hear you. Can't? And you're an ugly mother too.
Funny.
So...
You might need to work on the insult game.
Why'd you call him an ugly mother?
Take lessons from Monty Python, I guess.
That's the thing, though. So far, in terms of Uncharted clones that have no one north in them, this is the better one out of this and Dark Void.
Well, mind you, it's kind
So
of an
far.
easy challenge because Dark Void had basically zero personality when it came to ripping off the personality of the character.
Yeah.
I mean, like I mentioned in that run, Will Gray has the personality of a cardboard. So.
I will say this, though, there is sort of an issue I do take with this game aside from the gameplay issues we mentioned, and that's to do with this game's lore, of sense, in the sense like, well...
It's told and not shown, that's basically it.
Yeah.
Now, again, the basic counter-argument is that a game like Dark Souls manages to tell you about the lore and make it interesting. Thing is, Dark Souls is chock full of way many different things at the same time that you can do.
Yeah.
Some of the lore may be given to you by a mask, other times by a magic sword, other times by a pebble, because Yutaka Miyazaki has a weird sense of humor.
Yeah.
So there are way different things of which you can learn the fate of Lordran, of Astoria, Karim, and all stuff like that.
And you might know the thing, there's also still a huge world to explore in Dark Souls.
In this game, basically the game just stops so that the prince can talk to Elika and ask her about what's going on in this particular area. Again, mind you, it's not completely bad because at least you're getting to know something, but it's a bad approach in doing so. Hold on. Oh, I think I forgot to told who's the voice actor. Basically, the father is voiced by Fred Tatashore.
Of course, Fred Tatashore voicing a big, bulky guy.
Well, to be fair, he's not hulking out yet, considering he's already corrupted.
Oh.
If you come, if you help us heal the land.
Oh
What's
well,
wrong?
thanks for wrong too.
I guess he's getting corrupted.
Well, yeah, remember, he made that deal with Ahriman and was trapped in the temple when, you know, when Ahriman was released. So it's pretty much a given that Ahriman's influence has taken him.
I guess my issue with this is like, well, we don't even really know the main bad guy of this, and already this one guy who's our outlet to him is getting corrupted already, which is sort of an issue I have with the storytelling of this. It's like, well, look at the past Prince of Persia games. At the very least, you had something of a cast of characters set before you. Here, it feels like we only really know the Prince and...
Elika.
Yeah. And Elika. Like, we don't even really know her father, except now he's already getting corrupted. Like, I get this is a reboot, but one thing you... Especially with a reboot, you want to establish your lore and world well enough. Instead, as far as the world goes, we've got this underground city that we're only learning bits about, in a desert no-land place. Like, we know even less about stuff than we did in, like, you know, Shadow of the Colossus. And that was a flipping unknown land where the intention was for it to be unknown.
No, in terms of reboots, I knew more about freaking DMC's lore.
Yeah. I mean, I hate that
honestly,
reboot, but
DMC lore-wise alone, the DMC reboot is actually fine.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the plot of It Lives, basically. You just need to replace Dante with that wrestler, I forgot what he's called, and then he's saying a bunch of actually non-offensive one-liners.
At least in DMC, there's actual risk and challenge.
Don't hurt him, even though he's been trying to kill us.
More like we have more important things to do. Alright, time.
Wow, that happened.
Yep.
Alright, next.
If only I could do those things without those plates.
Just think of the places you could break into.
I think the term is tomb raiding.
Funny.
Tomb raiding, yeah.
Because
this game came out in 2008, Tomb Raider Underworld came out that year.
Alright, so let's take...
that was the last of the original Crystal Dynamics trilogy.
Alright, I think this one is the Path over Mazda.
But yeah, I mean, again, it feels like this is a reboot done without much ambition. Like, they didn't know what exactly they were doing.
The ambition was more into the presentation than anything. And even then, it can't be for everyone, as you guys said. But, and mind you, Ubisoft envisioned this as a trailer. Oh yeah, the flight over Mazda. Basically, this transforms the game very temporarily into a sort of a flying section where you need to avoid obstacles. Think about that TS1 Aladdin game, Nazira's Revenge, and having basically the controls of the carpet like that. Only that there's shit on your screen that distorts your vision partially.
Oh,
that's pretty much
it.
Yeah. What I forgot to say. Oh yeah. Basically, but remember, Ubisoft visioned this as a trilogy. So I fear this is one of those cases where they wanted this to be sort of on the foundation ground without spending too much time into it, and then refining things with the rest of the games. But oops, it turns out that your first game was actually bad and didn't sold as much as you wanted. Who would have thunk?
I mean, it's not really a surprise when
2.2 million.
Alright, we already discussed it, these leaves. For Ubisoft, it wasn't enough.
I mean, gee, not a shot considering.
Affliction.
Oh. Previously on Prince of Persia.
Oh? Something may have happened to Elika.
Could it be the future?
I saw that doesn't mean it will be true. Vision of you falling. Ahriman's trying to.
The visions aren't from Ahriman.
But they don't have to be true. No one can tell you the future.
Okay, moving on.
Well, that happened. Let's move on.
This is what Harry Potter was told, and look how that that.
Well, that's the fault of the author, not really the in-universe characters.
True.
Oh, cursed child.
Yes, Alice, I agree.
Yep.
Anyway, let's move on to the next area. Basically, we're still in the Hunter's territory. Basically, I'm gonna try to do to tackle the main fertile grounds that are associated with just one general, if possible. In this case, going through the hunter's territory. As you may have seen through the jump cuts, I'm keeping the light seeds, collecting thing mostly off screen because like I said, for 100% completionism, it can become annoying. But for the sake of just unlocking the platform, the power plates and everything, it's relatively fine. It's just that it will require a lot of time wasting. For the purpose of his commentary, it's not really needed.
Okay. I'll give this game another plus thing. I actually do like some of the new parkour motions you can do, like scaling upside down on ceilings. That's actually pretty neat.
I talked about this, Joe, and I agree with you. The problem is that as a result of it, they are way more scripted. The only time where you actually feel some kind of freedom is where you grab onto the vines, because you have actual freedom movement on a large area. Otherwise, it's all about press the timing correctly, once again, do it perfectly, otherwise you're screwed.
Again, what the game needed was a good middle ground, which sadly this reboot doesn't achieve, and they didn't choose to pursue with Forgotten Sands.
Trying to focus more on the acrobatic instead of, actually spamming the combat like it's a Dynasty Warriors game.
Yeah, that is one thing I'll give this reboot. It's like, well, unlike Warrior Within, it actually remembers that, Prince of Persia is platforming first, combat second, while also keeping the combat relatively fine.
Nice tower.
I say relatively because, well, there's not really that much combat to judge now, is there?
At the top of the tower. Well, they wouldn't put it on the ground floor, would they?
You'd be surprised. Sometimes they do.
Also, I swear, half the cutscenes where they talk to each other is just to say camera.
They are Dweebs. Remember, Dweebs, well, this was like 2 years, I think, before Mass Effect. So that style of, switching from one perspective to...
Actually, Mass Effect
came out the previous year.
Oh, it was right. It was 2007, actually.
It kind of makes sense, man, but keep in mind, it was still relatively fresh as a concept. It wasn't like, say, Evil Within 2, where they decided to use it despite the fact that it was, a new generation of console, and it was like so many years after even some games that use this stopped using that, and it wasn't even in the first, Evil Within. So that is more unexcusable. Here, it's a thing that one, it tried to showcase more of the power of a new console generation. Two, it's a thing that Mass Effect. Yeah, apparently getting onto that surface means that I failed.
It's okay, because she saves you anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you fuck up, because she's like, no, I'll save you. Da, da, da.
Only thing it does is really waste time, and again, that's part of
I get the feeling... I also get the feeling that Ubisoft didn't give this game much of a budget.
More like Pedro, like I said, they wasted all on the presentation, i.e. the character models and the score.
And even then, the character models feel a little too stylized to fit with the background.
Well, Jova, I think maybe that's the problem with background, not necessarily the character design, isn't it?
Either way, somebody like art-wise screwed up.
Like I said, the art director, like I said in the previous part too, the art director doesn't seem to know what the fuck he wants the game to look like.
Scripted sections flying through the air.
I didn't know.
Totally Prince of Persia-esque.
I didn't know which of the two art styles to go with, so I just went with both of them.
Also, a bit of a nitpick, but with some of these flying sections, notice how you literally span around in a circle. Oh god.
Anyway, unfortunately, we are trapped. It's a hunter, Peter, but we are trapped at the base of the tower and we need to get up. The problem is, this is the interior of the tower. It's chock full of corruption, which means a lot of perfect run style, climbing.
I mean, it's weird. I mean, even in Devil May Cry on its hardest difficulties, it feels like there's more room for error than there is in this game.
Although, Jova, to be fair, when it comes to actual gameplay style, I think it's a bit of different comparison because Devil May Cry is pure an hack slash with some very awkward platform elements, while this is kind of the opposite. It's supposed to be more of a platform with some awkward combat element.
Ha! It's a little the opposite, but I was ready to talk about how they handle their difficulty. Like, well, again, even on its hardest difficulty, Devil May Cry gives you something of a window for error, Whereas this game, though, again, because you can't die, you have to do stuff perfectly. Now, don't get me wrong, this game is probably easier than a Devil May Cry game. Well, not counting the reboot, of course, but even still, it feels like it's more unfair of a game than Devil May Cry.
Mind you, there's no difficulty setting, it's just one. So
Yeah.
it's not like things change if you select something like in easy mode or something.
Don't all the Devil May Cry games have a difficulty select?
Yes, but in the first one, the very first one, it was a bit more unbalanced towards difficulty in a sense that there were only a select few difficulties, and let's say, for example, hard mode was incredibly hard. And so in the next, starting with 3, they started to differentiate more with a gajillion different, difficulties. Nor easy. I think there's also like super easy or something, but easy, normal, hard. Then there's Dante Must Die, which is very hard. And then the 2 very special difficulties, Heaven or Hell, where everything dies in one hit, including you. So it's your choice if it's heaven or hell, or hell or hell, where only you die in one hit, but everything else doesn't. So good luck.
I won't touch so. Yeah, even if Jova bribed me to do that when I record DMC, I wouldn't touch that level, that difficulty with a barge pole.
Dwibs, I would never put you through that. That's really only for like, the top notch of the top notch. And even with the top notch, it's kind of more something that will ground
to put in
you to
Capcom
dust.
comparison, let's just say that Dante, well, Hell or Hell is not like Ghosts and Goblins, but it's good in that sense.
Hey, they're both from Capcom.
Well, I already mentioned this in the past, very briefly, but I always have a personal theory, my personal, conviction, that the Devil May Cry is a sort of legacy game, in a sense that both the game itself and the character of Dante basically is a pastiche of a good chunk of the previous games, major franchise of the Capcom eras. There's a bit of Stalkers, a bit of Ghosts and Goblins, a bit of Strider, a bit of Bionic Commando, a bit of Mega Man 2, definitely.
Heck, even a tiny little not Ace Attorney here and there.
Well, Ace Attorney was done after Devil May Cry. Well, no, actually, no, maybe around the same time.
They were done around the same time. In fact, believe it or not, Tio, in Justice for All, you remember that nightmare scene that Phoenix has with the demonic judge?
Yeah, supposedly it was supposed to have a demon, we already told Jova. Although I'm not sure what would have been. Maybe Nilo Angelo, I guess.
Maybe him or Sparta.
Or maybe Mundus, considered a giant size, but who knows. Oh. Yeah, button mashing Pedro's favorite.
Wow, I love how he literally punched out a demon.
As long as it's not like, as long as I don't have to fucking break the controller to get it to work.
Well, mind you, that's the thing, Pedro. Since there's no challenge, you literally cannot do anything.
Well, yeah, this is the other extreme.
There you go, Pedro. This is the perfect game if you don't like QTEs and want to take a break.
Or maybe I could just play a Platinum Games game.
Well, not the first Bayonetta, because that one is very punishing QTE.
True, yeah.
Maybe Bayonetta 3 when it comes out.
Yeah, if they ever show that again, they haven't shown it in 2 years.
Don't worry, I'm sure.
Platinum Games has assured us, has come out and said, yes, we know that you guys were expecting Bayonetta 3, but don't worry, just because the title didn't show up at E3, that doesn't. There's a problem. The development is going just fine. Well, okay, Platinum, if the development is going fine, then why can't you show us the game?
Enjoy this Astral Train game.
The person that was in charge of it left to Platinum, so something tells me that part of it is being,
so development isn't going well.
Well, Pedro, you know what PR responses are. So are you really surprised?
Wow, I gotta say, this is probably
no
the first
company is
time
above that.
I gotta say, this is the first time I've ever heard anyone act really, not angry, more so a bit pissed at. Wow. There's a first.
The Metal Gear fandom, when Rising came out, would like to have a word with you.
Oh heck yeah!
Hold my beer.
Not just that, Glibs, where were you when the Legend of Korra game came out?
And don't even get me started on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game.
Well, those were like, weren't those just from like Platinum's B team?
That's
I think so.
Well, that's exactly
like-
it, though. This is when Platinum started having a B team, and well, that's when, you know, they didn't always have stellar successes. Here's the thing, Dwibs. Up until stuff like the Legend of Korra game or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games, Platinum were known for this. Their games may not sell well, but holy cow, they're always fast-paced, extreme, and pristine to the max. And then came Legend of Korra. It wasn't the best. Then came Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It wasn't the best. Transformers Devastation was also good, but it was ungodly short, so yeah, there's that.
Well, it was the first. Remember, the whole thing was like a free game deal that Activision was giving to Platinum in order to make games based on the Nickelodeon properties. Since back then they still had the license. Which, yeah, maybe that's a thing. Considering Activision doesn't own anything, is the TMNT game being delisted now? Because I know Korra has been delisted from digital stores and possibly even Transform, but has the TMNT one been delisted?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jova?
I don't know.
Oh, okay, sorry. Because considering now it's THQ Nordic who has the Nickelodeon rights, maybe they can repropose at least the Transformers one. I don't know.
Hey, you know, honestly, if anyone could maybe make a good license game, hopefully it's THQ Nordic. Wow, they'll hopefully find the right
first of all,
developer. In the
First of all,
sense.
we need to see. Well, I'm pretty sure that Battleworld Beginning Bottom Reiterated is the testing ground to see if that kind of format works for a proper remake, because they're approaching a particular way in that they restored the dummied out content that was present in the original release and give it in a new French paint coat.
You know, it's funny how Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is exactly what me and a lot of people want to happen to Crash to Insanity. Remade, but with all the cut content included.
Yeah, it's like I said on SSMB, though. I'm wondering if at this point it'd probably be better to make something like Twinsanity. Just have some of the levels use, the designs from those scrap ones, but make new ones as well.
Let me guess, the reason is because, you know, at this point they would have to remake The Wrath of Cortex, since that's technically a prequel to it.
I think
Yeah.
they're at a point where they could make something new if they wanted to.
Here's the thing, though. Will they, though? Because Activision seem to really love that remake train.
Well, I mean, if it's making money for them, then they're not going to care, are they?
Honestly, here's hoping, though. I mean, at this point, though, they're running out of games to remake.
Prince,
Yeah.
you don't.
And I don't know
teach,
who's. Sorry.
You don't need to teach Elika to be violent, you know.
And who's asking for a remake of Crash
Yours
Bash?
a measuring stick.
Nobody.
I actually
Well,
would like that. We don't
I'd
like
be
and
okay with
everything.
that.
Okay. I
You
played
need
wouldn't,
that a
games
lot.
and everything.
I wouldn't mind
Just give it
that.
to the insane aesthetic to give it more homogeneity.
Yeah. And please, for the love of God,
Ignore
actually,
Boom Bang,
for the-
please.
No, what I mean is for the Doc Dash,
So, have you-
actually remix
I'm
Dingo
not
Dials
saying
3, not
anything
put in
until
that
you
weird
share something
synth can from the Japanese version.
Why we should?
I don't see why they would, but yeah. Also, I wonder.
No, they've done weirder stuff.
I wonder if they would
Oh,
add.
that's right. I forgot something, but no, I think it's best if I save it for the ending. Just for now, remember the fact that at the beginning, the prince, remember, he was traveling with a donkey named Pharaoh, because God, Pharaoh was not of interest in the Sand Saga. Jesus, fuck. But that's the entire point of his quest. The entire reason why this prince is doing this to restore the land is because he wants to find this donkey and go back to whatever he was doing.
Which is, I'm gonna admit, I'm not really always a big fan of, oh, I'm doing this for this totally selfish reason. Like, I'm only
Well,
doing this to
mind you,
find
Jova,
a
it's
donkey.
kind of a flimsy excuse. It's the whole, oh, I'm saving the war, but I don't want to admit it, Baka.
I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, I've seen that trope done better. Here, it just feels so by the numbers that it's kind of annoying.
The problem, Jova, is that here it clashes with the, Aladdin-esque personality of the prince itself.
Yeah.
Or more like Sinbad, because here it really represents the character of Sinbad, the sailor, always traveling around and having adventures where he goes through.
And why are you even bothering to refer to him as a prince? Like, I know what they do eventually, but imagine somebody who's new to Prince of Persia is
well, they want
this.
to like officially it's stated that they want to keep a mystery. But literally might be a prince or not. So I guess they want, because for subverting the expectation, like, oh, it's the Prince of Persia, but he may not actually be a prince at all. Even though, like, more than stupid, it feels unnecessary. Like,
It really
for the purpose of the narrative, I don't really care if this guy is a prince or not.
It's like, look. We get it. You have to be recognized as the Prince of Persia series. But maybe you could just, I don't know, rename it to Persia series if you're not going to have a prince, or... Again, I mean, if you're hinting at him being a prince, why even let there be a mystery? Like, it's called the Prince of Persia franchise. I mean, sure, maybe there'll be some twist here and there. It's just, it feels like they put a little too much thought into the less important things than they did the actual important things for this reboot.
I guess. Anyway, time to reach the last of the 4 major, fertile grounds tied to the hunter.
Whoa.
Jesus.
I love how he didn't even try to throw us off the ledge, he just froze us back on.
The enemies are very polite, Jova.
Oh,
Yeah,
dear
they're
sir,
very
you're about to fall?
considerate.
Here, let me help you and stab you.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been wondering. Can you imagine how many people who don't exactly follow gaming news all that often bought Forgotten Sands thinking it was a sequel to this game?
Actually, the common misconception instead would be that it was a tie-in to the movie, because it was released sort of promotional attached to that.
Not only that, imagine how many people were confused with this game. Yeah, that's a thing. Believe it or not, even though this game is a reboot, word of it being a reboot didn't exactly spread far.
Actually, it did, honestly. Well, I was following PlayStation Magazine back then. Remember, it was the time where me and my friend were scouting out, bad games to tackle. But back then, I didn't actually buy it. It was more recently, actually, because I was more into, the Sand Saga, so I wanted to see for myself what all the fuss was about. Back when it was marketized and everything, not advertised, sorry, on PS Magazine, they were pretty much clear on every major detail of the game, the fact that this was a reboot, the cel-shade art style, the combat system. Back then, I don't remember if they mentioned the fact that you couldn't die or not. I wouldn't be surprised.
No, they didn't.
I wouldn't be surprised if in beta stages there was an actual death mechanic, but at the very last minute they implemented Elika saving you, to make things easier on the player. That really wouldn't surprise me.
Hey, it's almost like Oscar and Hollywoodland, I think it's called, where basically they give away for you to get an immense amount of lives so that you'll eventually win, despite the BS difficulty of that game.
There we go.
But yeah. Basically, from what I recall, though, maybe it's because magazines weren't always readily available over where I lived, but it's like, well, it didn't feel like the word of this being a reboot was really out that much. Granted, again, my main introduction to Prince of Persia was through a graphic novel, so to me it didn't really matter. In fact, I only really learned about it later when I actually started getting involved with Steam more often.
That's the thing also, Jova. That's also the thing, Jova. The other thing about the gaming magazine, at least also back then, it's more easy to say now, but also back then, they were costly, at least for my country. $6.
Oh, they were over here too, like ridiculous.
That's like the equivalent of roughly 2 Marvel or DC comic books, roughly, at least for the time.
Nowadays, thankfully, they're easier to come by thanks to the internet.
If you were really into video games and wanted really to be kept informed, and obviously the internet wasn't a thing back then, it was actually an investment. But for a more casual person, the one that didn't even knew what E3 was, it still was like something that they wouldn't immediately drop their butts onto it, and I can understand that.
Around here, they were like £5 at least.
To compensate this, some magazines, like for example our Pokemon magazines, always had included some kind of a guide walkthrough. Like for example, a lot of during Gen 1, there were a lot that were released serialized with the playthroughs of how to beat Red and Blue and Yellow, for example. with also some Q&As given from the readers asking for tips and stuff like that. So there were some extra incentives, man. But instead, a magazine like PS Magazine was mostly for news purposes. It didn't have any extra neat things around. Maybe a couple of posters here and there, but that's it. There you go. In this case, the barrier will only be defeated by the sword. Basically, you know the type of barrier when the corresponding thing that can defeat it glows. If it's your sword, the sword glows. If it's Elika, Elika basically flashes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Again, yeah, I know.
Jova, this is not Warrior Within, so the screams are more legit. Like,
I know.
I know that Nolan North doesn't have a lot of range when it comes to screaming because you can easily recognize him, but at least it's not aggravating as sadly Robin Atkin does in Warrior Within.
Ah!
And I have nothing against Robin Atkin does because if you play No More Heroes, you know that he can scream decently. So...
It's funny, really. Robin Atkin and Nolan North, they play two mortal enemies in in Uncharted 3. And yet they both played the Prince of Persia. How interesting.
Well,
if there's ever an Uncharted 5, what's it going to be next? Is going on for?
Well, Jova, if you're a high-profile voice actor who has done basically a lot of things like say Steel Plum, you're bound to be subject of mythology gags all over the place like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, but as you can see, this last Fertile Ground was surprisingly easy. You just needed a couple of fights over Mazda, very simple fight against the Hunter where you could push it down, and boom, there you had it.
Ta-da.
But the good thing is that, like I mentioned, after you heal the 4 fertile grounds that are tied to the general in question, a door opens with the last fertile ground tied to it, which consists also in the final showdown, where the general is permanently killed. Now I think I keep it for last. Like either I keep it for last or we'll do it immediately. We'll see it when the next part rolls around because I remember it's been a while. Basically, I try to pace it so I don't go too schizophrenic about, having to fight one general here, the other here. It's more simple if you tackle the same one multiple times, especially because it gives you a better muscle memory when giving the inputs.
So, Tia, how do you think the game devs intended for players to do it?
What do you mean?
Well, do you have any idea of how the game devs intended for them to do it?
In terms of tackling, like I said, there's actually a lot of freedom. You can choose the plate to unlock with one, and that in turn unlocks a specific set of levels. The game even tells you which plate unlocks which thing, so it's entirely up to you to decide what you want to unlock first and where to go first. You prefer battling the alchemist? Go for there. You prefer fighting the warrior or the concubine? Go from them if you want. The mastering the plate powers it's extremely easy, despite them doing different things. So it really isn't a big of a deal. So I really commend the game on that front. The fact that it really does give you freedom in terms of that gameplay. It's a shame that it's attached to a lot of things that bog it down, but what can I do? Anyway, see you for the next part.
See you then.
See ya.
Yeah.